Welcome to the End Zone Club podcast, where we have conversations that are wrapped around things we know now, we wish we knew when we were younger. And today you are here with your host, Anthony Mitchell. Before we get started, I'd like to encourage you real quickly to click the link in the bio, or maybe you can donate to today's cause, or if you feel more comfortable liking, sharing, rating, subscribing to today's content and getting it in the ears of hopefully some more other faithful listeners, I'd like to encourage you to do that very thing. But before we get too far, we need to hear a word from our sponsors. So let's go live, y'all, in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone. This is Andre Truitt, representative for Just Gifted Clothing Brand. If you have individual talent of any kind, we are talking to you. Join this clothing brand that has built a community of people that encourages others to use their gifts and talents. Man, we are the fastest growing brand that you haven't heard of yet. To find out what we're really about, just go to justgiftedclothingbrand.com. Let me spell that out for you. JUSGIFTED clothingbrand.com. One more time for you. JUSGIFTED clothingbrand.com. Talent in any way, you're just gifted.
All right, it's your host, Anthony Mitchell, again here at the End Zone Club podcast, where, as mentioned earlier, we have conversations that are wrapped around things we know now, we wish we knew when we were younger. And if this is your first time at this platform, I have to thank you for taking the time out of your busy football-filled Saturday to enjoy the course of today's journey with us via our podcast. Now, I have to say, as a football fan, and more specifically as an LSU fan, I know you guys have me in your thoughts, and most importantly, your prayers, because we're going through a tough time right now in our coaching search. I want you all around the world to join hands and pray God bring back Nick Saban. Yeah, you heard it here. Nick Saban would be my first selection for coach, someone who maybe has 2 or 3 good years left in his arsenal. Maybe he's been at home doing all of the honeydews and all of the things that his wife might be requiring of him. And maybe he's looked at this situation and said, look, I'm a workaholic. I need to be on the field with these young guys, tutoring and pouring the contents of my heart and replicating in them and building winners in Baton Rouge. I'm hoping that's what he's feeling, but right now, this coaching search has turned into a fiasco. I know you're probably wondering, what in the world does football have to do with today's topic? And I have to say, absolutely nothing. But after spending over 43 days in a government shutdown, not getting paid, I've got a lot on my mind. And somewhere in the course of that time, it felt like it just hit ground zero when LSU fired Brian Kelly immediately after the Texas A&M game, which honestly, I didn't think they should have even let him make it to the fourth quarter. That's just me. But honestly, this is people's livelihood. And anytime it deals with livelihood, I hate to see bad things happen. But just fast forwarding in today's conversation, I was watching this video about Nick Saban on his birthday. He's sitting on a couch, more like a love seat / recliner, and he's covered in a blanket, and he's looking like a very older guy in this picture. And he's very in his everyday personality, he's a very fiery guy, right? Everybody knows Nick Saban as just being this contributor to the game of football, as possibly the greatest coach to have ever graced the game. And I know since he's left LSU and went to Miami and somehow ended up at our crosstown rivals, I felt certain kind of ways about him. However, this idea that he can come back home and rectify leaving us the first time has been very cathartic to think that maybe I might have to backtrack some memes that I've shared. Because y'all that follow me on social media know I go hard when LSU gets ready to play Alabama. Not just because I dislike Alabama, but because our coach left and he went to our crosstown rivals and then just started annually beating us. That's part of the story. And just to liken it to something before I really get into today's topic, it's almost like that ex-girlfriend or ex-boyfriend that you had that seemed to have the synergy to go the long way and possibly have made, tomorrow into forever, leaving, going away for a little while, and then coming back with somebody that's better looking, smarter, faster, more sound than anything you've brought to the table. That's the that's the hardest catchphrase to wrap your mind around, that you went out and you got better and did better once you left me. That's how I felt about the Nick Saban fiasco. But the reality is this man is in his 70s and he has built a legacy. Like him, love him, indifferent, hate him, feel like he's cheated, work whatever pipeline he can. The reality is that his legacy is now set in stone. This man has a statue in front of a stadium. He has the utmost respect from everyone in the coaching industry, to the point where even the president of the United States consults him on matters pertaining to collegiate football. And one thing I do have to digress here, because oftentimes in my journey of speaking with kids, you're at a different end of that conversation. You're really in that point where you're wondering what my tomorrow will look like. Matter of fact, many of you guys that listen to this podcast are still very undecided about what you will become. You don't know at this point really what you're interested in enough to even know if it's something you're going to like. So to see this stark reality of where you are right now and where he is, there are some things you can take from this journey. But one thing I always liked, especially with you young people, to put in the front of your mind as a value proposition is whatever you do in life, do it to the best of your abilities. Make sure you love it. Therefore, it's not like a job every morning, because I promise you, the way Nick Saban gets up and yells day in and day out, I think you guys are missing the point that the man had a very keen, acute sense of being able to give attention to detail. That's one takeaway from today's conversation I want you to derive from this conversation, is that learn to give attention to detail. One of my Veterans Day, which was November the 11th, I gave a speech at a school called Before the Clock Strikes 12. And I did an episode actually on that recently, so you can go back and listen to the prior episode. It ties into that message, Before the Clock Strikes 12. But from there, being in these places and giving these opportunities where you're pouring into young people, I can tell just from talking to kids who's really investing in them, just to even get them out the house and on the video game, right? That's a big part of a lot of our struggles. Sometimes it's hard to get you guys to see the bigger picture of life outside the window. So after we get you from there, just even last night, 12 o'clock, my son's on the phone talking to his best friend. He's only 12 years old. I try to take a different route of parenting than probably I would have had in that moment with my parents, and they caught me on the phone at 12 o'clock. But I did take his phone. And, of course, there was a conversation that ensued this morning, because one reality I'm trying to get him to see is the bigger picture of being a responsible individual, that you have to have boundaries when you know it's an acceptable time to be on the phone. And then you're not putting yourself in positions after certain hours of the night when everybody's asleep. And typically at those times of the night, there are a lot of other introductions that can come into your life, maybe from friends or people who may not be parented the same. Well, thankfully, in this situation, we know his friends' parents really well. They're really good friends of ours, so I don't have any concerns to that point. However, One reality you guys have to understand is the position you put yourselves in when you don't give attention to detail. His detail was he should have known I'm not supposed to be on the phone 12 o'clock in the morning. And he was so in depth with that conversation that he didn't even hear me, see me, or sense me walking up through the house in the dark at that time of night. Imagine his surprise when I opened the door and he's on the phone and he's got no lie that he can tell in that moment about what was going on. Because guess what? The house wasn't on fire. He wasn't in a dire need or no weird emergency. So what are we doing? What are we doing, son? So thankfully, he knew what to do, turned his phone off, handed it over. But one thing I see that replicated a lot, especially even with me mentoring a lot of young kids, their attention span, and y'all, and I say they, but I'm really talking to y'all, your attention span is so short because a lot of this information you're ingesting is the next swipe away. So you're looking at something on a social media screen. Guess what? You're swiping to the next, and that information is coming so fast that over time you've developed this constant gluttony for more and more and more, just because now so much is at your fingertips. However, those that are great at what they do, what they become, are those that take time to start paying attention to detail. As I've gotten older, I've got a terrible attention span myself. Sometimes you can be talking to me, and because I'm a daydreamer, I might be shaking my head, yes, but my mind is envisioning and imagining other things, situations. Maybe it's comic books, maybe it's a movie that's coming out. Maybe it's a food on a commercial I saw that I want to try later on tonight. That's how my mind works. It's always moving. Or maybe I'm thinking of an art piece I want to draw, or maybe there's a need in the community. I'm trying to wrap my mind around creating something to address the need. Like even right now, I have a trunk full of blankets that I have been trying to make time to set it up, to go down to the homeless shelter and pass them out. However, I'm actually just getting back from Japan. Shout out to the pilots and the crews that got us there and back. But I've been busy. But back to the point I'm making is that now that I'm starting to sit around more accomplished people and people that have gone or are going where I'm trying to go or have seen levels of successes, now I'm trying to take time to invest more in the current events, knowing more of the news cycle, knowing more detailed information about what goes on. And this is going to be something that you guys may want to take a note on, but never take something at face value. If the news has a topic, if they have a headline, whatever they're reporting, do not take as at face value. If you're in church and there's a message being preached, don't take it at face value. If you're at work and they give you a review, an annual review, midterm review, whatever, don't take it at face value. Young men, if you're in a relationship and that young lady you're with tells you, I'm good, don't take it at face value. Start developing your listening ear, your watchful eye, and your senses that teach you how to start investing in research enough that you're able to get the applicable or necessary information that's going to push you from just being someone that's in the room to someone that's able to drive conversations. We've seen it. You can get a group of 10 young men together, 10 young women, and you can tell who the most knowledgeable person in the room is based upon the type, not the amount of information, but the type of information they bring to the conversation. Just because somebody's the loudest in the room, just because someone has the most to say, it doesn't mean that the quality of their interjections or their input really matters. I was watching on Netflix, there's a new series, or really not really a series. It's a documentary piece on Eddie Murphy. Now, I know a lot of you guys may know Eddie Murphy more as the donkey from Shrek. but his body of work encompasses anything I've ever seen and anything he's done. But to watch him in his element, retelling his story from his rise to fame from the late 70s through the 80s with Saturday Night Live, and then from there he put out a string of bangers from Golden Child, Coming to America, First 48, Beverly Hills Cop, into some more current things like Norbit. This generation, for whatever reason, loves Norbit. But I had seen him do similar things more times than not. Even some of the other things he did, like Vampire in Brooklyn and of course Shrek, Nutty Professor, one of my favorites. And then he did like Dr. Dolittle as he started making that push into the direction of family. Eddie has a very great body of work, but one thing that stands out to me, if you're listening to Eddie on any conversation, his attention to detail is very pristine. Like, this guy has such a photographic memory. He's able to tell you in detail things and conversations and places and colors and smells from 30 years ago. Just that reality with Eddie, just the way his mind works, how much he was tuned in, it lets you know why with his work ethic, when he was doing stand-up, the two pieces he did, Delirious and Raw, they're timeless because his attention to detail and preparing his jokes and what he was going to wear, how he was going to tell it, the stories, the sound of music he was coming out to. Eddie was very intentional about his performance because he had great attention to detail. Now, how this relates to you guys, I'm going to say this and I'm going to get out. Attention to detail for you looks like having more than a that'll do attitude. If you wake up every morning and you give no thought to how you're going to present yourself, if you give no thought to investing in yourself, whether it's learning a new word every week or just for the day, reading some headlines on social media, learning what's going on and how it affects you, when these conversations come up, they're going to come up, whatever these hot topics are, learn something beyond just the talking point. The reason I want you to do that are interesting people that have a great grasp of how life operates and how stories are interwoven and how they present themselves. Just the attention to, I wake up and just throw my clothes on backwards, wrinkled, no sense of direction, no sense of ambition. I'm just going to go with the flow. Or people that wake up, give God praise, whether it's through prayer, just being thankful, declaring their day, making a faith confession that my day is great. Today, God's opening doors and he's bringing me into communion and conversation and connection with people that will forever change my life. He's opening doors of opportunity beyond what my mind thought possible. When you start declaring your day like that and you start getting intentional with what you want God to do, I want a new bike that's got 25-inch wheels, mountain bikes, 18, 20 speed. I want a new PlayStation 5 with 2 remote controls and 10 games and downloads and unlimited internet. Those are things I expect to hear from you now. But you're paying attention to what you want and you're putting it in the air and you're making what your words are speaking become your reality. Those are attention to details. Don't just wait for things to happen. Make it happen. And you can do that when you start giving attention to detail. Anyway, great people, great musician, great minds that think alike. All of them are people that have great attention to detail. So as Eddie Murphy, I'll close on this note, as Eddie Murphy is sharing a lot of stories from his journey and he's giving an inside look, it's crazy that all of the great comedians, you can tell who they are without knowing who they are by the way they're able to tell stories. And you can tell the more attention to detail a comedian has, the greater he is at his craft. Therefore, as Dave Chappelle is up and he's talking about Eddie Murphy and just how surreal it was to be on the same stage with him at Saturday Night Live. And the biggest comedian in the world right now that he is, when he got the chance to work with Eddie recently on Saturday Night Live, he called his mom and was like, "Mom, you'll never believe this, but I'm on the stage with Eddie." I gathered that watching, even Dialing it back a little, y'all know I used to be a musician and I like to draw, but I look at other artists and you'd be surprised how it's not that sometimes artists are better than others, or they sing better, or they play their instruments better. They just have a greater reality or grasp to detail. That's what's made Kanye West such a great producer. That's what made Michael Jackson such a great dancer. He had great attention to detail, and he would practice and practice and practice and keep practicing till he got that one dance move, not just memorized, but perfected, where he could, on a drop of a dime, he could do this dance move at any time, same way, same intensity, same greatness every time he did it. You have never seen one video of Michael Jackson doing a bad moonwalk. You'd be hard pressed to find a video of Whitney Houston singing one of her songs the wrong way. Why is that? Because the attention to detail makes these people practice something over and over and over till they get it right. And that's what I want you to do. Find something today that you can keep practicing over and over and over, because you realize, hey, I can start doing this better. And it could be something simple. Maybe it's the way you say good morning. Keep practicing it. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Keep practicing till you can get it in a way where it's effervescent, where people can feel your energy. And they're like, man, good morning back to you. Or practice the way you shake hands. Practice the way you put your clothes on. Are you neat? Are you presentable? Are you ready for the day? Are you ready for people's first impression of you to be like, man, this person's ready to go? That's all I want for you, the best, but you can only have the best when you invest with the best. Anyway, this is Anthony Mitchell, your host of the End Zone Club podcast. I'd like to thank you for taking the time out to listen to our content. Again, I'd like to encourage you to like, share, rate, subscribe to this content, even donate $1. Check us out. Our website is connected to the heading and the bio of today's episode. So if you want to see a little more in-depth, detailed work, description, or videos, or pictures, or anything you want to know about us, it's on our website, and you can see it better than I can tell you. Until next time, be blessed.